It was early October, the kind of crisp, clear morning that promises a perfect autumn day. The air carried the scent of pine and damp earth, and a faint mist still clung to the higher branches of ancient oaks that lined the winding county road. David Miller, a cartographer by trade and an avid hiker by passion, was deep in the heart of the Appalachian foothills, seeking new trails, documenting forgotten paths, a quiet escape from the digital cacophony of his city life. His destination, or rather, his intended starting point, was a small, reclusive community known only as Whisper Creek. It wasn't on most commercial maps, a collection of perhaps 50 homes, nestled deep in a valley, rumored to have been founded by artists and craftsmen decades ago, seeking solitude. David had heard whispers of its existence from an old ranger, a cryptic mention of a place where time seemed to slow, where people lived simply. He pictured quaint cabins, maybe a small general store, a few friendly faces. The gravel road leading into Whisper Creek was barely more than 2 tracks, overgrown with grass. It wound through dense forest, sunlight dappling through the canopy, creating shifting patterns on the forest floor. He'd parked his sturdy old SUV at the trailhead, a hand-drawn sign indicating Whisper Creek Trail, 2 miles. He laced his boots, checked his pack, and began the descent. A descent into a silence far deeper than he could have ever anticipated. The air grew heavier as he walked, not with humidity, but with an almost palpable stillness. The bird song that had accompanied his earlier journey faded, replaced by the rustle of his own footsteps on fallen leaves. He passed a narrow stream, its water gurgling softly over smooth stones, the only sound breaking the profound quiet. David was used to isolation, embraced it even, but this felt different. Not peaceful, not serene, but empty, expectant. After a steady half-hour walk, the trees began to thin, revealing the first structures of Whisper Creek. A cluster of mailboxes, rusted and leaning, marked the informal entrance. Beyond them, a small, meticulously kept garden, with rows of wilting late-season vegetables. But there was no one tending it, no dogs barking, no children's laughter echoing from the nearby woods. Just the wind, a faint sigh through the eaves of the closest house. David approached the first home cautiously. It was a charming, rustic cabin, built from local stone and dark timber. Its front door was ajar, not wide open, but pushed inward by a few inches, as if someone had just stepped out for a moment and intended to return. He called out, "Hello? Anyone home?" His voice seemed to be swallowed by the silent air. No echo, no reply. A strange prickle of unease started at the back of his neck. He peered into the gap. Inside, he could see a small, cozy living room. A half-finished jigsaw puzzle lay on a coffee table, a single piece resting beside it, waiting to be placed. On an armchair, a paperback novel lay open, face down, as if its reader had just gone to fetch a drink. A mug sat on an end table, a faint ring of dried coffee at its bottom. Everything was in its place, untouched, except for the people who should have been there. He moved to the next house, the same. Door slightly ajar, a porch swing swaying gently in the unseen breeze. Inside, through a window, he saw a kitchen table set for breakfast, 3 plates, forks beside them, a half-empty cereal box, a milk carton, all dry, all still. It looked as if a family had simply risen from their morning meal and walked away. No mess, no signs of a struggle, just an abrupt, inexplicable cessation of life. Panic began to gnaw at David. This wasn't just odd, it was profoundly wrong. He checked another house, then another, each one a tableau of abandoned domesticity. A child's tricycle lay on its side in a driveway. A garden hose snaked across a lawn, still attached to a spigot, but dry. The silence was becoming oppressive, a heavy blanket that muffled even his own ragged breathing. He knew he had to get out and alert someone. It took him another 2 hours of frantic hiking to reach his vehicle and find a signal. His call to the county sheriff was met with skepticism, then a growing concern as he described the scene. Within a few hours, a small convoy of sheriff's deputies, state police, and eventually federal agents made their way up the winding gravel road to Whisper Creek. The sun was beginning to dip below the western ridge, casting long, unsettling shadows across the empty homes. The initial sweep was meticulous. Every home was entered, documented, photographed. No signs of forced entry, no broken windows, no ransacked rooms. Valuables, cash, jewelry, electronics were left untouched. There was no evidence of a struggle, no blood, no bodies. It was as if the residents had simply vanished. One moment they were there, living their lives, and the next, they were gone. The authorities expanded their search. K9 units were brought in, their barks echoing eerily through the silent valley, only to fall silent themselves, finding no scent trails leading away. Drones scanned the dense forests for miles around. Helicopters flew low, their rotors chopping through the air, but revealing nothing but an unbroken canopy of trees. The residents of Whisper Creek, approximately 120 souls, had disappeared without a trace. As the days turned into weeks, the investigation deepened, revealing more perplexing details. In one home, a baby monitor was found still active, its small speaker emitting a faint, static hiss from an empty nursery. The crib was neatly made, a forgotten teddy bear tucked into its corner. In another, a half-filled bathtub, the water long since cold and evaporated, left a faint ring of soap scum. Someone had been preparing for a bath and simply stopped. Pets, too, were left behind. A golden retriever was found whimpering on a porch, its food bowl still full. Several cats were discovered hiding in empty homes, gaunt and terrified. It was a detail that profoundly disturbed investigators. Who would leave their beloved animals, their most cherished companions, behind? It suggested not a planned departure, but an immediate, urgent, and universal one. Perhaps the most chilling discovery came from the town's small, communal post office. Inside, on the counter, was a stack of outgoing mail, neatly bundled with a rubber band. Utility bills, birthday cards, a magazine subscription renewal, all addressed and stamped, ready to be sent. It was a snapshot of ordinary life, frozen in time, poised for continuance that never arrived. The postmaster, like everyone else, had simply walked away from his duties. No notes were found, no messages scrawled on walls, no frantic calls to loved ones documented on phone records. It was a complete and absolute vacuum of information. Every single resident, across all ages and demographics, from the elderly couple who had lived there for decades to the young families with infants, had performed the same uncharacteristic act. They opened their doors, left their lives intact, and walked away into nothingness. The theories naturally began to circulate, each more unsettling than the last. Was it a mass abduction? But by whom and how? There were no tire tracks of large vehicles, no signs of struggle, no witnesses. The logistics of moving over 100 people discreetly from such an isolated location seemed impossible. And why leave everything behind? Why not steal or destroy? Some posited an environmental event, a localized gas leak, a sudden silent toxin that caused hallucinations or compelled people to flee. But extensive tests of the air, water, and soil revealed nothing out of the ordinary. No unusual radiation, no chemical agents. The surrounding wildlife was unaffected, thriving in the now empty valley. The idea of a mass psychological phenomenon gained traction, a shared delusion, a sudden collective trance that drew them out into the wilderness. But what could trigger such an event, and with such uniformity? And why, after all these years, have none of them ever reappeared, never contacted anyone, never been found? The vast, unforgiving Appalachian wilderness held many secrets, but to swallow an entire community without a whisper, That strained credulity. Cult activity was also considered. Had Whisper Creek been a clandestine commune, hiding a darker purpose? But the residents were a diverse group, not a homogeneous one. They had lives outside the valley, families, friends, even if distant. There was no charismatic leader, no shared ideology that surfaced in any of their personal effects or correspondences. They were just ordinary people, living ordinary lives. Today, Whisper Creek remains frozen in time. The homes stand empty, decaying slowly under the weight of years. Dust gathers on the untouched jigsaw puzzle, on the pages of the open novel. The garden has become overgrown, a wild tangle of weeds reclaiming what was once cultivated. The silence has settled back in, thicker and more profound than ever before. Visitors, mostly curious hikers or amateur sleuths, occasionally brave the trail. They walk through the abandoned houses, their footsteps echoing in the silence, their breath misting in the cold air, each one searching for an answer that simply isn't there. They find only the lingering ghosts of lives interrupted, the unsettling stillness of a place where time stopped for everyone at once. The question of Whisper Creek persists, a chilling whisper in the dark corners of unsolved mysteries. What force, what silent command, what unseen terror could compel an entire community to simply walk away from their lives, leaving everything behind, and disappear into the vast, indifferent wilderness? No one has ever returned, no trace has ever been found, and the profound, unsettling quiet of Whisper Creek continues to hold its secrets.